We are almost there, guys. We're almost there. So over here you can see कि ये थोड़ा this particular box is actually, the div is actually looks like it's overlapping, it's on top of the div or it's inside the div. So let's make that happen. So हम इसमें क्या करेंगे, what we're going to do is we are going to come to this div which is there. Where is the div? This is the div, right? So in this, what we are going to do is we are going to make it come to on top of this particular div. It will look like it's actually inside the div, but it's actually not inside the div. It's kind of overlapping on the div. There are different ways how you can achieve this. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a different method, and that is saying, so what we are I'm going to use the margins, right? So what is we are going to use is ये iska div ko we have to shift it on top of the div, right? Overlap, kind of overlap. So what is this entire div, right? So this is check buttons. Where is this? Here, right? Display tha, content tha. Over here only I'm going to make it, what I'm going to make it as margin top. So what I'm going to give is, if I give suppose margin top pixel, 20 pixel, right? So what happens is iske aur iske beech mein you can see the space is there. It's giving the space, but I don't want positive space. I want negative space so that it comes. See, if I keep increasing this, oops, okay. Suppose if I increase this, if I increase it, it goes up, but if I decrease this, it goes near the div, right? So I want to make it come as overlapped. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it negative. So I'm going to say suppose negative of 10 pixels, right? So it has come a little bit up. So वैसे करके I'm going to make it more top, and I'm just going to give it as suppose 80. It has come up. If you want to get it a little down, you can give it at 70. It will come a little down. So I'll just make it 80. I really like it a little. There's a space between yahan pe. So that is there, right? So this is done. But now you see this total character, right? They are like literally sticking there. I don't want that. I want a space between now this and this. So what I'm going to do is the word counter is here. I'm just going to go give margin top, but this time positive. Suppose I'm going to give 20 pixel. Positive, it is there. So it kind of looks like this. I am using different like the fonts. The fonts are not same. That is okay. I'm using different fonts at this time, but almost looks like same, right? Except this disabled is not there, but that is all functionality wise. So let's see what happens. Suppose I'm focusing on this. I will remove this. Nothing is really happening. Fine. But now nothing is really happening, right? So now comes the functionality part. Now what we're going to do is we are going to implement what are the functionalities. That is, whenever I add, I can check the text, I can copy the text, I can clear the text, right? So the first thing that we are going to do is I want to what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this check text. I'm going to use this particular div. So I want to add functionality to that, right? So this is your editable uh, like your div, which is going to make it editable, right? So before that, I want to see, you saw that how to link the CS and HTML, we added it here, right? So we have quite a few functionality. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this file to this. I'm going to link this file to this HTML file, right? How I'm going to do is what I can do is inside the body, I have a tag called script tag. What happens is, so there's a script tag. You can start coding here itself. You can add all your functionalities here. If it's one or two functions, good to add here. But I have many functionalities, and this particular page will increase, and I want to keep it different files for different functionalities. Like this is just the HTML for styling. I have a different file. So that's what I'm going to do for JS as well, for the functionality as well. So now what I'm going to do is, how do I tag the script file to this HTML? I have added the script tag. Now to add the file, there's something called src attribute. To that, what I'm going to add is I'm going to add this name of the file that I want to link to it. That is script.js, right? So I have added this. Now this is linked to this HTML file. So now I can use these IDs and I can do some functionality to it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to save this. sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna save this, and now I'm gonna take this. The first thing I'm gonna do is take this check, this editable editor. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna what do you call it? Get a hand, get a hand to that div, so that whenever I do anything to it, I can I know where, how exactly do I access it, exactly do I access it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make it as const, because I don't think so we're going to change it. We're going to really keep changing the div actually. So I'm just going to make it const. If we were about to change, keep on changing like this total character, it keeps on changing, I would actually make it let and not const, because we are going to keep changing the values. So const. Now what I'm going to do is I want to get that. So let's get access to that particular div. So let's name it as something called cal val, the value which would be there inside this. I'm going to use it, and how I'm going to access it. So there's something called document dot. So how I'm going to get the access to it, I have initialized it as ID, right? So I'm going to use that document dot get element by ID. You can see, right? So whichever element will have these ID, it can, I will be able to access it using carval. Okay. So if I had suppose a class added to it, and I want just like this div, this has a class, and I want to access it using the class, what I'm going to do is get document dot get element by class name. We can use that, right? But we have IDs. I've used mostly IDs because it's unique to all the components and buttons, and that's what the requirement is. So I'm going to use the get element by ID. And which ID do I want? I want editable editor, right? So now this will have access to this particular div, right? We have this. So let's also have the access to all the buttons and to all the characters. Eventually we're going to use it, right? So what we're going to do is I'm just going to duplicate it, suppose 5 times, and we have check button. So I'm just going to name it also same. There's check button, there is your copy button, right? There is copy button, all our HTML IDs, right? Yes. And then there is clear button. It will get access to that, and now we have the counter which is there, right? So I can just access this. Let's make it let, because I'm going to use that to change it. It did not come out as proper. We cannot use these, so I'm just going to make it as counter. Okay. Oops. Okay, this is there, and the last is the remaining counter, right? So I have access to all these, right? So I have like access to these, the entire thing I have access to. So now what I'm going to do is, the first thing I'm going to implement is check text, right? So that's like the fun part entirely. So let's do that. So I have the access to this particular button, and that is what, that is this check button, right? Which we have. So we are going to copy this, right? So what we want to do is we are going to add add a listener to it. What is a listener? When I click on it, on click, right? So I want to add the event listener. What is the event? That is the click. So I'm gonna use the function, a method called add event listener. And what I'm gonna do, what is the event? What is the event? That is click. On the click of the button, now, okay, I'm clicking. Now what should happen? What should really happen? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a function. In that I'll tell what actually should happen. It's like a callback function. What should actually happen when I click on it? What should really happen? So suppose the event, I'm taking an event. I'll tell you why am I going to use event. Let's come to the later part of it. Right now I'm not going to use it, but I'm eventually going to use it. So I'm going to tell you what happens. So what happens when I click on this? What should happen is I am going to call a function called check grammar. I want to check the grammar. I want to check the grammar, right? So now where is this function? I've not really initialized or declared this function or doing anything in this function, right? So that's what I'm going to do now. what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna, okay, I've so you can see there's a issue, right? That it says your semicolon is expected. Why is this? Because you have to use a keyword called function, or you, or how you can do is also is you can use arrow functions, which we'll use in different methods. Don't worry, I'm going to use a bunch of different ways we can call the function. So this is like very basic function. You use the keyword name function, and then you declare the function name. So what is going to happen inside this functionality is this, when I click on this particular function gets called. Let's see if it actually happens, or am I missing something? So again, you can come to the source file. We have the JS file. Okay, we have not saved it. See, as soon as I saved it, it's linked. Now let's see. I just want to see if this is getting called or not, right? So I'm going to click on this and it hits this button, right? So this event listener is added successfully. We have added the event, right? So now let's actually go ahead and do the required functionality, which is actually required. So I will just go ahead and give you the API URL that I found, which is available. Like there's this tool called language tool. The free version is very limited usage you can do. If you want, you can go ahead and buy the paid version or whatever you want, and have a variety different functionalities which language tool provide. I'm using the free version, and it's going to do very basic spell check and grammar check. Okay, uh, fine. Okay, so now after that we have done this, what we are gonna really do is the response call, which is actually there, right? So the response call, what happens is whatever the text I am getting, I have to send. There is this payload where we have to pass. This API has particular requirements that you have to send certain payloads. Then only this will actually run, which makes sense, right? Because what will this API know? What should I actually do with this API? What should it check? The endpoint is check, but what should it check? It should check the text that I'm going to type in here, right? It should check that. So that's, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do is, suppose making a const, I'm making a, variable called text to check. This is the text that we are going to check. How do I do that? So what do I whatever I have written inside this, whatever I have, I want to that is my text to check. So how do I get access to this particular div? This is a div, right? Well, how do I get the access to it? This is this char val, right? So oops, this is the char val, right? So this is the access to the entire div, right? I don't want the entire div. I want what is written. What is the text inside this written, right? So that's what I'm going to access it. I'm going to give dot inner text. So you can see there are two things, inner HTML and inner text. I'm going to use inner text right now, but I'm going to tell you at the end why. There are three things which you can use: inner HTML, inner text, and value. How the three are different, how when should you use what, is what we'll cover at the very end. Right now we'll go ahead and do the functionality. So I'm going to use the inner text, so that will return all the text that is here, right? So let's go ahead and see if we actually get that text to check, right? I have just done this. I'm going to go here, I'm going to write something, I'm going to check. I'm going to see in the console, I have got whatever I have written here. So this is the inner text inside the text, the div that is which we are getting access from char val, that is this get element ID. I want to access the inner HTML I have mentioned. You can also use inner text. It will give you the text that is inside the div, right? So that is what I'm going to use here. Fine. We have got this. Now what we want to do is, now we want to make a request to this API. Now we are going to go ahead and make request to this API. So how do we do that? How do we achieve that? And that we do is by calling a function called fetch. what does fetch do? It is not, you don't have to it's available from JavaScript, and it will help you make a get request. So this is a get request because you are sending something and you want to get something from the API. So that is, it is a get request, right? So we are going to make a get request. So what is the form that how you send it? So you first send the API URL which is there. You're going to send the API URL which is there, right? So but what happens is we are going to append means add. We are going to add few different things, like we also want to add the text which we are getting from here, that we need to send. And we also need to send what language we are using, right? Right now we are going to use the basic language, that is our English language which is there. You can change it and use different languages whatever you are comfortable with. I'm going to use that language code as ENUS, right? Normal English which we have. So how we're going to add this? We are going to use something called template variable, because we are going to club a different normal text plus some variables. We're going to club it together, and that is why we're going to use it template files, template literals. And how is template literals look like? This uh, like slanted quotes kind of a thing. Okay. And how do we add add the variables to it? We need to use the dollar sign, that is the dollar, and then there's a bracket. So this particular thing will know that this is a variable, and whatever is inside this variable, we have to use that value. It will not use API URL, right? It will use whatever is inside this API URL. So I'm going to go ahead and add this here, right? Now I'm going to add the payload which it actually requires. This is the format of the URL. This is the format of the URL. Okay, so I'm going to it should be inside this. I'm going to give text. It takes a text and the language. So you see I am writing it in plain whatever the as text, it will go as text. Now I want to add whatever is there inside the text to check. So what I'm going to use it, I'm going to use the dollar sign and the curly brackets. So what will this do? This will append text equal to whatever is there inside this text to check. That is whatever we have written here, right? Whatever we have written here. Okay, now what I want to do is just not this, I also want to append that. I will use and different how many payloads values should be there, you add it by using and I need languages, right? I want what language do I need it? What language do I need it? So again, I am going to do what? I am going to ampersand sign, and I'm going to add the language code. Okay. But what happens is it will not really understand what I have written, right? So I'm going to encode it so that in a way that the API call will be able to understand it. So I'm going to use a function call encode you. All these functions are available from JavaScript. You can always go ahead and look out what actually it does, or we can also go ahead and discuss it at the very end of the class. So this is there. We are encoding it. We are adding the text. Now what's going to happen is we're going to get a response from it, right? We're going to get a response from it. That is then. So the response that comes up, it is as a promise, right? So that is how we're going to handle it. If time permits, I'll explain what entire thing is. But right now, fetch gives us like a JSON object. It returns it and a promise, and we have to convert it, okay, in a readable format which we can understand. So what we are going to get is we are going to get a response from it. Of course, we are going to get a response from it. And what do we do with that response? What we are going to do with that? Suppose the response is not okay. I'm going to throw an error saying the network is actually not okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and copy paste the the text which is really not applicable, like in understanding what we are actually going to do. But suppose if the call fails from the API call which is there, it will show you that the network response was not okay, right? So now suppose if it is not true, if it does not come inside this, what we are going to do is we are going to convert that into a JSON, right? So I'm going to take that response.json. So now what will happen is from this we are going to get the response which is readable to us, like which we can understand. We can do something with it, right? So now that we have a response, it will return this dot then and return will return a response which is understandable to us. Now what I'm going to do is, once I get it, then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take, suppose it returns it in the form of data. Let's see what actually it returns, or is it failing or it is not failing. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead, and we don't have any points. Let's see. Hello, and I'm gonna text. So this is the response. So this is the different console log. We are checking what is the text. The text is hello. And this is the API call that was happening from the API that we gave. This is the tool. And this is the payload, the text it is taking. This is taking the language, what language we are actually talking about. And the preview is what is the data you are actually getting. So this is my readable data that I'm getting. They have different things going on. We just want to make sure on the matches. So matches, which what will it include is, it will either be empty or it will have an array, right? Of what it will be there. They will have different, like you can see, I just said, typed in hello, right? So they have different things in matches. So there's this one error which is there. That is why it is not empty, matches is not empty, and it is showing something. What is there? The message will say what is the actual issue, the possible spelling mistake, right? There is some issue, some spelling mistake is there. Offset means from where does it start, from where does it actually start. So from the 0th position, from the very beginning, the issue actually is from. And the length means how long is that word for, that the issue consists for. So I'm explaining this because we are going to use all this, so I'm going to tell you what exactly is. So this entirely thing comes under the matches part, right? So what does the message shows? This shows possible spelling mistake. Offset means from which index does it actually start the error, and length means 6. How long is the length of that error? There is something called replacements which comes as well. This tells what are the probable values that you can use instead of that. So in this project, I am going ahead and blindly taking the first one. You can see there are various suggestions. There are 3 suggestions according to the according to this tool. They have 3 suggestions. Right now, I'm not using all the suggestions. I am just using the first. I'm blindly taking the first suggestion, whichever it is returning. You can go ahead and take it as a follow up, and if you want to code this and go ahead and do more things, you can add different suggestions and create different sentences using the different suggestions it is giving. Okay, so suppose I'll do one more try and I will show it to you. Hello, welcome to today's class. Let's see if it responds. There is a response to it, there is a match, and there are 3 possible places where it is issues are there. So the first is, again, this is sentence does not start with an uppercase letter. Let the sentence changed, the error changed. First, what should it happen? It should happen is, this should be the capital letter, right? This is what their suggestion is. And the offset means from where is it starting? It is starting from 0th letter, and from where, how long is it? It is 6 length. The replacement is hello. It just gives one replacement or suggestion that is with a capital H, right? And the second is like welcome's possible spelling mistake. Where does it start from? 8th, the 8th one, that is here. This is the 8th one. It is starting from there. What is the length of that entire word? That is not correct. That is, the length is 7. And what is the correct value? What is the suggestion given by the API? And that is welcome, which is the correct spelling of it. And same goes with the this is the first, second, and there is a third one which says today's, right? It seems a possessive apostrophe. We are missing an apostrophe. It is returning us that we need apostrophe. What is it? It is sending us the correct value from where is the error occurring? Offset. Offset is used where we get from which index is the error happening, and that is 19 from here. And what is the length? 6. So this is what we're going to use in and code here, and I'm going to get the correct suggestion. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, first thing is, okay, also one thing, suppose I have welcome, it is correct. I'm going to clear text, right? I'm going to text this, and you see the matches is empty because it is correct, right? So when should we handle the when should we handle the correction? First is the matches should be there and that the length should be greater than 0. That is, the error should not this the length should be 0 of this particular array, right? So that is what is doing. First of all, it should exist. It shouldn't be that the particular property is not there. It is there and that the length is greater than 0. Then only we are going to go ahead and correct the sentence, right? So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create another function where I'm going to suppose I'm going to say it as function and I'm going to apply the corrections. Okay, and what I'm going to go ahead and do in this correction is suppose I'm going to okay, I'm going to enhance this particular function. I'm going to call this function. I want to send the text that needs to be corrected and the matches that is being sent and the matches that comes from the response, right? I want those things. That is what is going to help me from correct the entire thing. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to take content and the matches. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, you saw that the matches comes in form of an array, and if there how many number of errors are there, it comes in like the first correction is in 0th place, the second is in first, and the third is on the second. So it's like an array, right? So that's what we are going to do. We are going to go through each array elements, that is 0, 1, 2, right? So what we're going to do is we are going to use a for loop. Right, there are different ways of using for loop. We are not going to use the basic let I is equals to 0. No, what we're going to do is we are going to use const match of matches. This is ES6. What will it help do is, it will help us, okay, it will loop through each like you saw that there was 0, 1, 2, right? So each the item present at 0th index would be match. Like it will iterate through the arrays, loop through the array, right? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna you see that here over here, right? There's a possible error message, and we want from this entire sentence which is there, from the entire sentence that is the welcomes, we want the word which is at mistake from the offset till the length of the particular the word, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it starts with 0, it goes till the 7, the length of it, right? -1, because it starts with 0 from array. So what I'm going to use it, what I am going to use it is something called substring, which helps us extract, like the word says, substring, subset of a string, we can extract it, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to suppose take wait, we do not have much time, so I'm just going to copy and I'm going to explain it to you. So what I'm going to do is, what I'm doing is content. This is the actual text which we are getting, right? What is the text that we want? We are going to get that. We are going to extract the word from from whatever the mistake is, from the offset using the length. So from the offset we want, that is match dot offset, we want it from there until how long do we want? Like the entire, we want that entire from 0 to 7. So that means 7. So what substrings does is, from what value do you want, that is the 0th value, and where should it end? Like ends is just पहले. So this is 7th, right? But it is actually not the 7th value, it is the 6th value. So the last value which you give, right, substring from where to where, it's like from 2, but it is not equal to 2, it is like less than 2. Okay, but the thing is, we are gonna see the thing is, we want we have this content which we are gonna enhance it, because we have to make it correct, right? So what we're going to do is, we are going to keep a copy of it so that one stays intact, because if we start correcting the same sentence, the same text which we are getting, what will happen is the length and the offset will keep changing, because as soon as you correct this, the length might change, the length might change, so the offset and the length which is coming from the API will not match then. So what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and keep a copy of it. So let's say I'm taking a variable called let editor text, and I'm taking a copy of that sentence which you are passing, right? So now we have in one we can edit as soon as we get the correct we are going to get the correct the sentence, you're going to edit it, and one remains as such. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create an object which will have a all these offset the message which is there, because if you see I am going to show the message what the error is, right? If I am going to say hello, right, and if I do a check text, you see there's I'm mentioning what is the correction and what is the message, why is it a correction required. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I am going to maintain an object. I'm going to maintain an object which will help me do all these functionalities. Okay, so now coming back to this particular, I have, like, I will know now what should be modified. I know what should be modified
Hi,
now.
Mahima.
Yeah,
Mahima, Akansha is asking, could you please explain that loop again?
this loop, this particular loop. Okay, just a second. Welcomes to today's class. Okay, so you see, I did this API call, and we have this matches and matches this. If you can see it, there's a square bracket, so this returns an array, right? What does it return? It returns an array. So this is at the 0th position, this is at the first position, right? How you create a basic for loop, that is for let I is equals to 0, I dot like I dot length is less than equal to something, and then I plus plus, right? And then if you have to access, you will say matches of I, that is the first value 0, so matches of I. So that is the old or the very basic way of doing it. This is ES5. This is a newer way of doing it, more better way of doing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an off, like for off. This is called as for off. For off is used to iterate through an array. It will iterate through an array. So suppose if I write console.log as match. So what will happen is this match which is there, right, of matches, it iterates, it helps you iterate through an array. So instead of doing matches of I equals to something something, this entire match, what will it mean is matches length ka kya, what is the length, that is 2. So it will iterate twice, and the first time it iterates matches what is at the first value, first index, and the second time it iterates what is at the second index. So if I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna say welcomes to today's class, and if I'm gonna check text, and if I'm gonna come here, you see over here, if you see the network call in the check text which is there, this is an array, and this is at 0th index, it is at the first index. What this does is it will take each item present at the index. So this is the first thing that gets printed. So this is like we are iterating through an array. So this is the first element that gets printed. This is a second. This is a better way of doing it. Instead of let I is equals to 0, I less than something dot length, I plus plus, and then using that. Okay, this is an ES6. This is a better way of doing it. So now we are getting each match. We are getting the match.
Mahima,
Yeah,
hello.
yeah.
Uh, Akansha, now you can, now she's audible. Mahima is facing some issue. Mahima,
Who's? Can you hear
Mahima,
me?
Akansha is facing issue.
Okay.
Akansha, you can rejoin the session. Mahima, you can continue.
Okay. Great. Great. Where was I? Yeah. So this is gonna help us extract. Okay. So just a second. I will just see this. Does this work? What will it do? Is I'm gonna see. I'm gonna console and see what is happening. I'm gonna copy this, and I'm gonna save this. Okay, so now I'm going to paste this and I'm going to check welcomes to today's class. So what is happening is, with the help of this particular substring and the offset from what index to what index, I am getting the text that is to be modified. That is why I've named the variable as to be modified. In this sentence, welcomes need to be modified, and then today's need to be modified. That is what I'm going to do. That is what we are getting here, right? So I'm going to remove this. This is working fine for us. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to you know push everything to this return object, and I'm going to handle this once I come inside this particular then functionality which is there under the if. And the next thing is what I'm going to do is I'm getting what these are the words that I need to enhance, I need to correct. Now but how do I correct it, right? So this is the that is why I need a copy so that I maintain both. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the correct version to it, like the corrected sentence to this. So how I'm going to do that is, since I have a copy to it, I'm going to, there is a function in JavaScript called replace. What I'm going to do is I'm going to replace. Which words am I going to replace? I'm going to replace these words, right? I'm going to replace these words. And with what am I going to replace? What do I replace it with? I'm going to replace it with the suggestions you see that comes in the replacement right over here. If you see the replacement which is there, I'm going to replace it with this. And I have mentioned this again, I'm mentioning it again. I am blindly taking the first value. I am not taking the different suggestions it is giving me, right? I am blindly taking the first one. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. So what is happening is I'm replacing. What am I replacing? I am replacing this particular word. So this is what is the editor text. Editor text is entire welcomes to today's class. That is we are sending, right? This is editor text is welcomes to today's class. In this sentence, which word needs to be modified? Welcomes need to be modified. And with what does it need to be modified? It needs to be modified with the first value that we are getting, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to console.log both editor text and content. Content is the initial value which we have, and editor text is the edited one that we have corrected based on the API, which the suggestion that it is giving us, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say again, welcomes to today's class, and I'm gonna, okay, I'm just gonna, I don't know how many suggestions will it give, so I'm gonna correct this a little. See, you see, this is 43. 43 says what? The content which we have written here, and welcome. 44 is welcomes to today's class. That is the corrected version, right? That is the corrected version. That is what we need to correct it with. So that's what we are going to go ahead and do. Okay, so we are getting the correct version. Now we also need like I am doing this when I hover on it, unless I hover and correct the text, it should not be get corrected. So I'm going to go ahead and just what I'm going to do is I'm going to show it to you guys and then explain it. I'm just going to paste it here. So this is the object that I had created, right? So the message I have created, the object, these needs to have these properties, that is message, replacements, and the corrected text. So message is what? Message is the message that will come here, right? Over here you see possible spelling mistake found, which was coming from the API call, that I'm pushing it. And the replacement, what is the correction? You can see in the correction I've written hello, HELLO. So that correction, that replacement value, I'm adding it to this particular object. Okay, I'm adding that, and then this corrected text is this, not nothing but this editor text. I just want to copy that, right? So what I'm gonna do, go ahead and do is I'm just gonna do this. Now I want to return. I want to return the object, right? So I'm just gonna go ahead and return this object. Let's see what comes. I am gonna do is console.log here, and what I'm gonna do is okay. Okay, I am gonna again go welcomes to today's class, and I'm going to check text. I'm going to here if you see, this is the object that is getting returned. So messages are what? This sentence does not start with an uppercase. This is the first issue, and then it is the apostrophe is missing. That is the second. What are the replacement? What are the suggestions? That is welcomes and today's. And what is the entire corrected text? And that is welcomes to today's class. Okay, so this is the entire thing which you're gonna, this is the only functionality of the API that I am using right now. They, as you see, they give different different suggestions and all. That is, you can go ahead and amplify your particular Grammarly or Grammarly clone. but this is what I'm going to work with. So done with the API call. I don't need to look at the API's response anymore. I'm going to work my way ahead with whatever I have entered into this particular array. I'm going to go ahead and use it here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, what I'm going to do is, I want to, uh, uh, like show the suggestions first, not go ahead and directly correct it. I want to show the suggestions. So what I'm going to do is, now they have different parts, right? This part is message, this is your replacements. So I'm going to extract those from the object which is there. How am I going to do that? It's again, it is ES6. In this, what is going to happen is, I don't have to, individually go ahead and const message is equal to apply corrections text.a dot message. No. What is happening? This object is getting returned. So this is nothing but return object of which has these properties, right? So I am getting, so this message, what will the message take out is, from this particular object that is returned, I want the message property. So the message property will be assigned to this message. The replacements property, which is returned from this function, will be assigned to this replacements, and the corrected text will be assigned to this particular corrected text. I don't have to go ahead and now do let this and that of this, right? This is the way I just extracting it from this particular object. I'm going ahead and extracting it, right? So now what I'm going to do is, this is a little tricky part. What I'm gonna do is, the content, like the text which is there, right? You saw in this, what we have, like I removed that console. There are two texts. One is the text which we sent here, and the other is, the next is the corrected text which was coming, right? This is the corrected text. What we're gonna do is, we are going to split it into an array. We are going to make it as an array first. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So how can I do that? I'm just going to paste it here. So I have a variable called text array. So this is what text to check. So that is suppose today's class, and it will become as what? It will become as an array. Welcomes. It will be an array of which will contain elements welcomes to today's class, right? And the corrected array, what will it contain? It will have the corrected arrays, like welcomes with W capital, then the next would be to, and then would be today's with an apostrophe, and then it would be class, right? That is done. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is go ahead and formulate something like this, right? Where I have this underline, and when I hover on it, it will tell me the particular correction and suggestions, or why is the correction required, right? So now I'm going to use, as I said, I'll use a mixture of all the things. Now I'm going to go ahead and use the basic for loop. So basic for loop says what? For let I is equals to 0, and then I is less than what? I want the array to keep, keep running till the original sentence which we have given, right? Not the corrected ones, the original ones, right? So an original is what? This is the original. And since I have the array, I will use that array, the length, less than equal to that, less than that array's length. So it will iterate 4 times, because we have welcomes to today's class. We have 4 times, it will iterate through those many times, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and give I plus plus. This is your basic for loop, right? So now what happens is, if you see, I am giving an underline, right? On hovering, I am giving an underline, and it should only appear to those elements that are actually incorrect, not the ones which are correct, because I don't want that to happen on the corrected ones. So that is why I was using a div here, so that I can add the content inside it. If I would have used text array, which you can use very easily, the thing is to style the elements inside the text array is difficult, and you have to actually do it using the div, and there's a whole lot, it lengthens your process. So it's bad. What I did is, I created a div and I made it as editable, so that I can also type in here, and I can also add the desired tags and CSS that I want. Okay, so the desired result which is there, I will make it suppose as an array, and I will create a array. This is the result array. I've just empty array I've created. So now what I'm going to do is I want to add these CSS, whatever is there, underline and everything, this span tag and this drop down which is there, only when it is like when these two things doesn't match. Like welcomes will not match to welcomes, but two will match to the two because it's correct, it's not wrong. Today's will not match with the corrected today's, but class will match because it is the same. So I want to add, add these CSS which is there to the ones that do not match, right? So what I'm going to do is I am anyway going through the loop. I will add an if condition, right? I have an if condition where the text arrays in like the elements, whenever it do not match with the corrected array, right? I can again show it to you. Let's have a console so that you guys don't get confused what actually has text array and your corrected array, right? I will write welcomes to class. I will text here welcomes to class. So this is the entire thing is wrong. No, right? So we have this welcomes will not match to welcomes. This two is matching to two. This class is matching to class. So this CSS which is there, right, should be applied only to the ones that do not match. That is why this particular function. Now what should I do is I need to add, how do I add it, right, to this particular thing? I need to add a span tag or a HTML tag, right? So the best is the span. We don't want a paragraph tag because it's not a paragraph, it's just a small label, right? So I'm going to use a span tag. So what I'm going to do is, and I'm going to implement it to that particular, so to that index itself, right, to the first index, this index and this index. So the I remains the same, the values are different, but the I remains the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do result of I, because the same index that do not match, I have to add it there itself. What do I add it? I will add a span tag. Okay, I will add a span tag which has a class because I need to add some CSS to it. Plus I am taking the text array I. Why? Because I am not correcting it right now. I want to first show that there is an error, and the person should know, the user, you should know, right, where the error is. Now that you know that there is an error here, okay, now you want to correct it. The next step is you want to correct it, right? You don't want to correct it immediately because you wouldn't know where the error is. So that's why I'm gonna use that. I'm going to do what? I also want a drop down to it. So I'm just going to add the entire div right now. And I'm going to show you what is happening. Okay, just a second. Yeah. So what I did is that particular word, that is which word? It is this word, welcomes. I want to add the underline and CSS to this particular word. That is why text of I. Plus, I am adding this particular div for what? I am adding this particular div for it is being added because I want the hover, like the hover effect, right? When I am hovering on it, okay. Whenever I am hovering on it, then only this popover should appear, right? For that, I am using this particular div. And what is the first suggestion? It says correction, right? And the correct word, and then the message. What is the message, right? And that is why I'm using replacements. You remember from the particular object which was being sent from this function, that replacement and the same message, right? Now, there, see the words, if you see the length of this, is what? 3. Welcomes to class. But the correction, where is the correction happening? Correction is only happening at the, like, what is the count of the correction? Only one place is getting corrected, right? If I write welcomes to today's class, right, the length may be 4, the length is maybe 4, but the where are, what all places, where all is the correction happening? It is happening at only 2 places. Now how do I maintain that? Like, it can happen at different places. I can have 3 also, right? Now it will have like 3 places there are changes. How do I know what all changes? Where all should I make it, right? Where all should I add that span tag? So for that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna maintain one count variable so that I know how many at what count should I actually return it. So I'm going to say, suppose say let count is equals to 0. But if you also see in this, the network which is there, right? This text goes. So whatever this network returns, it doesn't return in an haphazard way, right? It sees the sentence. The first error is here. The first error is here. It sends at the 0th position that it should start with an uppercase. It is not like the error is at the first index, but it is sending it the message at the third. No, it sees the first sentence wherever the error is. It sends accordingly. It's not like the first error that you encounter, it will be sent in the third index. No, right? So we're assuming, and we can see from the pattern of the particular API that we are using, that is maintained. So that is why what I'm doing is I am maintaining this count, which is what is equals to 0. So what I'm going to do is, as soon as I encounter an error, this will say that there's an error, right? As soon as I encounter it, I'm going to use that. So though that index, so the first error that I encountered is at where? The first error that I encountered is at the 0th place, right? So I'm gonna start the count with 0, and what I'm gonna access is the first replacement, the first index of the replacement array that we created, right? But now I can see the next error is also there, today's, right? So that is why what we're going to do, we have to increment the count. What we're going to do is count plus equals to 1. This is the shorthand method of increasing your count value. So we are increasing it by 1. So it will take care of welcomes today's classes, but there's a word called to as well, right? We want to make sure that the to is also handled, right? So that is where the else part comes in. If it is same, if nothing is really happening, if nothing really requires a change in that particular word, we're just gonna assign it simply, right? Now what we're gonna do is, inside this we need, like as you said, we have to update it, right? Update this particular span tags and the div tag, the CSS which we have added to it. We have to add it, right? We have to add it inside this particular uh, box in the div. Where how we are accessing this div, this is the editable editor, right? This is the editor that we are actually using it. Want to edit it again, right? So what we are going to do is, we are going to go ahead and we are gonna go ahead and uh, use that. And what we're going to do with that is, we are going to uh, uh, insert it inside the like we used inner HTML before, right? That is what we are going to do. That is what we're going to do for this particular div. We are going to add it, right? So suppose what I'm going to do is, I'm going to just add the inner HTML for that particular yeah. Where should I add? Outside the for loop, because once the for loop is completed, that is when I want to do it, right? So let's see what my console.log and editable editor comes up as. Okay, I am going to say welcomes, just welcomes to class. I'm going to check. You can see what happens is, the entire, what does this happen? This is the div that we applied here, right? The div which we added here, and the span tag which we added here, right? But what we're going to do is, we don't want it to be seen. We only want it to be seen when we're hovering on it, right? So we're going to come to that. We're going to make those corrections. But before that, if you see, what happens now is, this div which looked like just div id editable editor and just this much, now it looks like what? Div. Inside that there is a span tag which is applied to what? It is applied only to the welcomes, right? Span tags ends there. And then to is there. Over there, we are not really applying any span tag. And then there is what? There's a span tag applied to classes, right? So let's go ahead and edit or style this correction required, right? This particular class. So how I'm going to now do that? So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to first style it. So where is it? It is inside the editable editor, right? So let's come near this. and we say at the, okay, wait, I'll just copy this. I'm going to give space. Space means inside this that exists, that particular uh, class will exist, right? And class is accessed how? Dot, the class is there, right? So if you hover on it, if you can see, right, this is the parent div. Inside that div, this div is there, which has class as correction required. That is our requirement, right? The parent div, which has editable editor, and inside that there is a correction. There is another div, a child div, right? A child span or child tag. So now what we're going to do is we are going to use something called text decoration, because we want to decorate the text which is available to us. So I'm going to go ahead and copy paste from my css. What is it? Text decoration. I want it to be underlined. I want it to be underlined, yes. And I also want it to be color. The color should be of that underline which is there, right? It should be red. Okay, so I did that. Now if you see, this is just on but on hover also some changes are there, right? On some changes are there, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And when is the changes happening? When I'm hovering on, and hovering on what? Hovering on this span tag which is there, with whose div is whose class is what? Required, correction required. So what I'm gonna say is, I'm going to say this correction required, that is this class. When I'm hovering on that, what should happen? The color should change, and I'm also adding a little padding so that it's like pops out a little. So you can see when padding is applied, a little popping out is happening, right? So that happened. This is going to happen on hovering. Now let's go ahead and style the, which is the correction content, right? So what we're going to do with this is, this is your popover sort. So I'm going to just show you what I'm going to do. Just a second, I will explain it to you because we do not have much time. I'm going to copy paste. I'm going to show you what we're doing. So this is the welcomes tag. This is a span tag. On hovering of that, I want to show the popover, right? So what is the the element or HTML for that popover? It is, we have a div, and inside that there is an aref. Right now it's hash, but if you give a link, what should happen to it? If I click on it, what should happen? But I don't want it right now. Nothing should happen. I don't want it to click and go anywhere. Suppose you want to have different suggestions and you want to apply the suggestion you like. That is when you can use the href and you can say which one do you really like. I don't want to do that right now, but that is why I'm just giving hash. I don't want to do anything. Okay, and what does it say? The first thing it says correction welcomes, and then it says what is the issue with it, right? So I'm just going to style this. What is the first styling? It should only appear when I'm gonna hover on it, right? So the initially, if you see, I've not given any style, just the css is applied, the just the class is applied. So the first thing is display should be none. I don't want it to be displayed. I only want it to be displayed when I'm hovering on it. So if you see, when I am hovering on it, when this is there, right, when I am hovering on it, when I'm hovering on what? I'm not hovering on the correction content. I'm hovering on this correction required, this word welcomes. That is when I'm hovering on it, and if that particular thing has this if it has, if you see on hovering of this, if it has a child element which has a class this, then display. That is how when I'm hovering on it, it's gonna get displayed. And this is nothing. I'm giving a background, or it is a little grayish color, so I'm giving a background. The width, I'm saying I don't want it to take up the entire space. I only want it to be like 40%, so I'm giving the width as 40%. Height is fit content. It should not like jitna text, jitna content, it should just fit that much. I don't want extra space for heighting and all. Z index I'm giving so that it actually pops over. It does not get hidden behind anything. And the font size, I don't want it to be very small. I want it to be like 14 pixels. I'm using that right now. So this is, I am applying it to this particular div, which has both correction hello and possible spelling mistake found. But these a tags which are there, this particular a tag which is there, right, uh, I want to style that as well. So that is what I just want to, I suppose I'm giving a color, I am giving padding, text decoration is there, that is this blue color which you see, and that line is there, right? Because it will tell you that the user should click something and it will go there. I don't want to give that impression. That is why I'm making the display, the text decoration as none, so that these underlines and this blue color does not appear. Right now, if you see the sentences which was written here, right? This correction welcomes, this sentence do not start with an upper letter case. It is not appearing until now. Why? Because this is display none. But as soon as I hover on it, right? What happens as soon as I hover on it? This css gets triggered. I am hovering on it, and since on hovering I have this particular class, right? That is why see, if I hover on 2, it will not, nothing will appear because there's nothing for it, right? But when I hover on welcomes, it makes it appear. Okay, now what I want to do is, now I know what is the issue. Now I just want to correct it. Let's go ahead and correct it. So what I'm going to do is, as soon as I click on this, right, so check text is there. Now I'm done, I have my corrections. I want to correct it. So let's just go ahead and change the the text of this particular button. So this button has what? This button is check button, right? Check button is there. I will not obviously go and change it here because it will change it in general. I want to change it only once I have all the corrections here, right? All the issues it says that it has. So over here, I'm going to go ahead and say that this button ka inner text is what is there, right? Whatever the inner text is there, that is this text. Let's make it correct text. Okay, let's make it as correct text. So what happens if I'm going to go ahead and I say welcomes to class, right? This is there. I'm going to click on check class, correct text. This is there. As soon as I know that there is an issue, now it will say correct text. So you know what it needs to be done. You will correct it. When you click on this, it will correct the entire sentence, the sentence which is required to be corrected, right? Now, how do I do that? How do I do that now? Okay, so what I'm going to do is, of course, ये जो entire ये जो div है उसके अंदर का जो text है, I just have to replace it, right? Replace it with the correct one, and it will not have the, since it will be corrected one, it will not have these span tags, this correction, this pop over thing. It will not have, because it will be the corrected ones, right? So what I'm going to do is, now what, when do I want it? I want it only when I click on it, right? Correct text, when I click on it. So as you can remember, I already had this functionality for the same button, where I'm adding a click functionality ki click hone pe this should happen. But now if I click on it, I don't want again this API to be called, right? I only want this to be corrected with the final value which was there, there, right? So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to create a function, not function, I'm going to create an if condition, right? So this particular this check grammar, when should it happen? When there's the text says check text, right? Simple, that is a simple condition which we can find, and that is whenever it is check text, then only check the grammar. But if it is not check text, is if it is correct text, right? If it is a correct text, then what do I want? I want to correct the sentence. I want to make it correct. Simple, right? I want to correct it. Now, where did we have it here, right? In this, iske andar ka jo ye corrected text hai, we have the actual corrected version of it, right? So what I'm going to go ahead and do is, ye editable editor jo hai, uske andar ka inner text which is there, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to change that, not the HTML, the text I'm going to change, right? The entire text मेरे को change कर देना उसको. So what I'm going to do is, there are two ways you can again call this function. I don't want to call this function again and again. I already called once. Why to call it again? Though no API call will be made, but क्यों करना है, right? So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to go ahead and make a let say final sentence. Okay, इसको मैंने, I just make it as empty because in the beginning it is nothing. What I'm going to do is, over here, right, I'm just going to say, so that it is available everywhere, because this function is already called. I don't want to call it again because it will trigger an API call. So what I'm going to do is, when the first time it was called, I will just update that final sentence so that whenever else I want to use it, it's all it the sentence, the corrected sentence, it is available there. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to do this. Let's go ahead and see if it works. I'm going to say welcomes to class. I'm going to check text. It says that it is error. What is the error? This is the error. I'm going to correct the text. And once I correct it, it becomes the corrected version. Right now, if you hover on it, nothing is there because there is no error. Right. So suppose you want to check again ki ho sakta hai there is some issue. Right. So as soon as this is corrected, I want this text ka text, the button ka text to be back to check text, so that you can check again if you want to check it. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go ahead and make it check text. So welcome to my class. So if I'm going to go ahead and correct test, it says welcomes. And what is the error? It should start with an upper letter case. I'm going to correct it. Corrected it. This is the correct version. Now let's again try and check it. I'm going to check it. I'm going to check it. Nothing. There's absolutely nothing. There's nothing. They do not return any match. So I can keep on checking, right? Somebody should be able to tell me that you don't need to keep checking it, right? Your sentence is already the corrected version. You don't have to keep on checking it, right? So what you can do is, you can go ahead and say that what will happen is, so you see, when there is no correction required, like when there's nothing, right, the matches ka array which is there, it is empty. So if you remember, there's this if condition where the correction, everything happens, right? What is this if correction? If the matches is there and the length has something, that means iska you need some correction. So what is the else part? That means there is nothing required, right? So I can just alert, say, I can just alert. You can alert yourself, or you can, if you want to create another popover, you can create. That is absolutely on your welcomes to my class. I'm going to check it. It says the error is there. What is the error? It will tell me. I'm going to correct it. Corrected. Now I'm going to check again. It says no error in a sentence. Hooray. So that I would know. I wouldn't keep checking the text and all. So before I continue, Shrishti, I wanted to know, like, what's the time limit? Because I think I have few things left. But if you want, I can just do the major ones, and or just fatafat do the rest.
Hi, Mahima.
Yeah.
Maybe this is completely fine. Hello, am I audible, Mahima?
Yeah, you're audible. Like, just wanted to know, because I wouldn't mind explaining another 15 minutes if the people want it. Otherwise, because I can see that it's 15 minutes
I'll
past the
ask the
time.
students if they want. Then we
Yeah,
will continue the session. Students, do you want to learn more? Raise a thumbs up if you're interested. Okay, three of the students are interested, and Ram Pratap is saying no. I believe, Mahima, that is completely fine. Like, we will end the session.
that is fine with me as well. Maybe I can share the code at the very end to you. You can share it with the class. Maybe when they play around with it, because the major part was the clone of the Grammarly, right? And which is this.
Yeah.
So I am actually correcting it. I am showing this. Rest is very like basic. So the major Grammarly cloning was done.
Okay, no issue, Mahima. Thank you for your time and consideration. We believe that your expertise and insights would be grateful to our audience and our participants.
Yeah.
So, and thank you, audience, for joining this session with Mahima. And thank you once again, Mahima, for your time and wonderful session and content. We are looking forward to more future sessions and more opportunity.
Yeah. Same here. Thank you. Thank you for such a lovely host. And it was really wonderful.
So let's continue to learn, grow, and support one
Yes.
another on the incredible journey.
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Mahima. Thank you, audience, for joining the session.
Thank you all.
And her code will be shared by Mahima on the chat box. Do copy the code, or
Code like would be very huge. I can share you the
the
like the
zip file,
zip
or
file. Yeah,
yeah,
zip file, and maybe you can share it with them.
sure, sure. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Mahima.
Thank you.